Oh, can't stand it.
Good morning and welcome to this Wellington Business Expo live stream. Today I'm joined by Anna Ramm from Network HR. How are you this morning, Anna?
I'm fine, thank you. Very happy that it's Friday.
Yeah, we were just saying that, weren't we? It's been a long week and a fabulous week, but the weekend's nearly here, so yeah, all good. So Anna's been a great participant in our Business Expo in our first week. We've seen you a couple of times and on live streams and in person, and thank you very much, Anna, for your support this week and for your involvement. Really appreciate that.
Oh, no need, you're welcome. It's been a great week, and I think we've had some really good responses from the event that we had with the children the other day, the youth going into employment, so it's been great.
Yeah, it has been fabulous. So today, Anna will be presenting to you on how to make your job application stand out from the crowd. This topic is more important now than ever, and just on my way into work this morning, I saw new figures coming out on the job seeker numbers and how it's spiking now, and the impact of the wages subsidy coming off and that sort of thing, all due to COVID. And you know, we're all seeing a increase in job seekers. And if you were at our economist breakfast on Monday earlier in this week, you would have seen that, you know, going forward, that's likely to continue. And the lack of uncertainty, the lack of certainty in the market feeds into that as well. So before I hand over to Anna, please remember to ask questions in the comment stream on your Facebook Live feed, and Anna will answer them for you mostly at the end, but if something comes up during, we'll try and address those as well. So yes, thank you, and I'll hand over to Anna.
That's great. Thank you very much, Helen. And thanks very much to the Chamber for giving me this opportunity to have a bit of a talk to you today. So just bear with me. We'll make sure that we get these slides up for you. Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday to you all. Thanks very much for taking time out of your busy day to tune into my webinar today. Hope you enjoy it. So today we're talking about how to stand out from the crowd and really get your application out there. And hopefully you can see this on a full screen now. As Helen was saying, there's been some lots of media attention with regards to the amount of applications or the amount of job seekers out there currently due to the unfortunate impacts of COVID-19 and the things that businesses have had to do in order to remain in business. And so with that in mind, your application now has to really stand out, and you really have to make yourself known to the people that are looking for staff in order for you to actually be memorable. My team and I are currently recruiting for a number of applications, a number of positions for different companies. And we've really seen an increase of applications for every role. On average, we worked out last week that we're getting probably about between 80 and 100 applications per role. And that's across the board from recruiting an electrician all the way through to security officers and office staff. So there is a real need to make sure that everything is perfect when you're sending off your application. So before we get into that, let me just tell you a little bit about myself and the company. So originally, I'm from Italy, completed my education in the UK, emigrated to New Zealand circa 12 years ago, and I've got probably a little bit more than 20 years experience, but let's not mention that, of national and international in recruitment, human resources, senior management across many different industries, which allows me to really sort of help small to medium-sized businesses in the local area to really get the best out of their people and get the best out of their companies. When I came to New Zealand, I worked for a number of consultancies and found that they only really focused on the process side of HR. They didn't really engage with the owners or the senior managers or really help them develop their skills or help them actually grow their business. So I put on my big girl pants and opened up Network HR in 2015, and I haven't looked back. So how can we help? So we offer a number of services. But put simply, we're here to help you. Often business owners get into business because they are great at what they do, but they're not necessarily excellent at the people or the business side. So that's where we come in. We can help you out with anything from recruitment, obviously that's what we're talking today about, all the way through to strategic and operational change management. And we can also be your business mentor or virtual CEO. So we help you grow, basically. We help businesses grow. And our main point of difference is that all of us have run businesses before. We know how hard it can be. We understand that although people are your biggest asset, they're also your biggest headache. But enough about me and the company. Let's actually get on with what we're here to talk about today. And today we're talking about obviously your job application and how to make that stand out. So if everything is going well, you're hopefully seeing a slide that's divided into 3. And we're talking, and we've sort of split it into the employer's journey on recruitment and the job seeker's journey. So the tips and tricks for you, and really what it is to mean to use the networks and how you should sort of be using that, basically. So the employer's journey. So to truly, really understand about how to get your application in front of these people is to really understand what it is that they're looking for and understand what the employer really needs and what they're wanting. So it doesn't really matter if the role is a new role or if it's a replacement role. Employers generally sit down and discuss what it is that they're looking for. And often they have a list of must-haves. I really, really, really need this. And then there's the, oh, it'd be really nice if we could have that. But essentially, that's why we sort of call it needs and wants. So they sit down, talk about it, discuss it amongst the team or whoever it is that is actually looking at it, and then takes it from, and they sort of take it from there. And that's how they start to actually look at the job advert, and that's how they create things. So you really need to decipher what it is that they want, and the clues, generally speaking, are in the advert or the job description. So where to look? So if your majority of people or majority of companies will place their adverts on Seek and Trade Me as a bit of an automatic here in New Zealand. Other countries use different websites. In the UK, they use Reed. Indeed is quite popular, and Facebook and LinkedIn for advertising roles, again, are becoming increasingly popular. Depending on the sort of, if you're in the youth market or looking around that sort of student side of things, student job search is employers use quite often if they are looking for younger students that are just coming out of university or about to come out, and they're looking for maybe like their first or first true, I suppose, role. Google for Jobs is now starting to be something that people are using, and Jora, but that's to name a few. Essentially, key ones here in New Zealand tend to be Seek, Trade Me, and as I said, more increasingly Facebook and LinkedIn. So job adverts. So when the employer sits there and writes their advert, they tend to have it in the same sort of structure for every for the majority of roles, and that tends to always start off with a job description, a job title, 3 to 4 bullet points or sentences that sell the role to you, the company story, so they tell you a little bit about themselves, an outline of what you'll be doing on a day-to-day basis, and what they can offer you. Then they tend to put at the bottom like an outline of the application process. And it's important to follow that process, because I can assure you, if you've specifically requested information, like ID or a covering letter or filling out an employment application form, if you haven't done it, you automatically get just pushed aside, because most people, if you haven't got the information, most recruiters really can't, they won't waste their time. So adverts and tips. So the adverts themselves, and we'll have a look at an advert in a minute, but you really need to read the advert. And when I say read the advert, I mean read it. Actually look at it word for word and really read it more than once, and really try and understand what it is that they're looking for. So highlight the core duties, maybe, or the responsibilities, those personality traits like I'm really looking for someone who's motivated, or a people person, anything that you think you might need when you're composing your covering letter, which we'll discuss later on in this webinar. And those key words are what will give you that added advantage when they're actually reading your cover letter, but we'll get into that later. So really make sure that you've read it. Highlight the key areas, so the key core components of the role, the personality traits, responsibilities, and then always make sure that you, one, keep a copy of the advert, because you never know, you might actually get an interview. And if you do get an interview, 9 times out of 10, the advert will be referred to at some point in that interview. The other thing is always, as I've said before, keep to the process. If they've asked for a cover letter and a CV, then give it to them, and make sure that it's what they want. So let's see an advert. So I've just pulled one of our old adverts off online, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of a minute just to have a bit of a read. And then what we're going to do, I have to admit, normally these things I do in person, and we tend to sit down and discuss it in a little bit more detail. So at this point, I would have given you loads of handouts of different adverts, and we would have sat down and we would have gone through them together. So I'm going to try and do this online, which is a little bit different for me. So let's see if it works. So I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to pick out the sort of the key areas or the key bits. So first sentence or first sort of paragraph, you can see that it says that they're looking for a highly motivated, skilled finance whiz who can oversee the accounts function of their and hands-on. So just in that opening sentence or that opening paragraph, they've told you that basically they're looking for someone who is with it, who is self-driven, who can get on with things, is obviously someone who can oversee the accounts function. So that's someone, or a finance whiz. So it's someone who really has a good handle of the accounts. So that would be the both purchase ledger and sales ledger, and that they have a good understanding or concept or of how that would work. And they've also told you that that they're looking for someone who's hands-on. So it's not someone who's just going to sit there and say, oh, these are the reports and this is what we've done. No, they want someone to actually get in there and physically produce the invoice or physically process the payments that are going out to the creditors and debtors. And then in the next part, they actually tell you a little bit more about the day-to-day. So the things that you'd be doing. So 2 things on this side of things. One, obviously, it tells you a little bit more about the role, and it tells you, is this something that I really want to do? Do I really want to generate invoices? Do you really want to reconcile or do month-end responsibilities? So that's the first half. And then the second half is that they're actually giving you the information that you'll need when you write your bullet points for your cover letter or bullet points for your CV. So they're telling you what the key things are for them. So in this instance, generating invoices, you really want to have that highlighted so that you've got that in your CV and you can double check it. So the other thing that they've got is resolving any issues and discrepancies. Again, really key, especially for an accounts role, but to be honest, it can be anything. In any other role, it may be an attention to detail or being able to identify discrepancies in a process, for example. So really bring those out. Reconciliation, journals, month-end responsibilities, and financial reporting. So all of those things are the general sort of things that a finance person is sort of asking or looking to do. So make sure that they're actually in your CV. Cash flow management and forecasting, same thing. And the IRD, returns including GST and PAYE. Again, make sure that it's in your CV. Make sure that you put that as a bullet point, because that feeds into the hands-on request that they made earlier. So assisting in the development of managing of budgets. So that's a budgetary thing, and that's a little bit different. So making sure that you've highlighted that. And then the second part of it talks to you about what they're looking for as the ideal candidate. So for their organisation. So they've sort of said that they're looking for 3 years accounting and 2 years experience of payroll knowledge and New Zealand experience. Now, this pre-COVID, there was a real steady flow of international applications coming through, and often employers would be very specific about that they needed New Zealand experience, especially when it comes to these sorts of roles. So that's why it's sort of been put in there. Now, there's such a huge amount of people looking for work that actually the international side of things has slowed down quite considerably. And now we're using the candidates that are, or applicants that are available here in New Zealand. So definitely on your CV, make sure that you're highlighting your years of experience and of both the accounting side of things and the payroll things. But those 2 bullet points are brilliant to put on the covering letter because it's nice and punchy, and it can really tell them to go, yeah, okay, they've definitely got those skills. I'll move them into the let's see pile. So next slide of it, they've sort of described the IT skills. So their intermediate Excel, Xero, MYOB, and payroll systems. So that sort of gives you an idea of what it is that they use. The ability to work in a team and changing environment, and a New Zealand driving license. So all of these things you should be highlighting when you're looking at the advert, because it's really giving you some core what they're looking for in the role, and it's also giving you that ability to then use those words, which we'll talk a bit more about in a minute, to use those words in your cover letter and your application form, if you've got to do one, or CV, in order for you to actually get in front. So if I give you a little bit of an idea of what it's like to actually recruit, then it might give you a bit of an insight on why I'm going on about certain things. So often as I've said, we're currently recruiting for a number of positions, and we're receiving a large volume of applications. So those applications come in via Seek or TradeMe, and they have there's lots of them that come through. We have almost 60 seconds, or probably a bit more, about a minute, to look through the applications to make a decision on whether or not we're going to shortlist them or not. And so we need to see that key information as soon as. So if we start with the covering letter, so make sure that you're addressing it to the right person. You will be surprised the amount of applications we have, and it clearly says Anna on the advert, but actually I get Emma or Hannah, or my name is spelt wrong. So please make sure that it's spelt correctly, and that you've got the right email address. The same goes to a reference number. Most adverts will have some sort of reference, whether it's a title or a job code or something along those lines. So please make sure that you put that on. So opening paragraph of the cover letter. So make sure that it is clear, it's concise, it's informative, and use those words that you've got off of the advert in those opening paragraphs. If we go back to that advert that we looked at, so they were looking for someone who was highly motivated, who was driven, who was a financial wizard. Make sure that those sorts of words are on that initial paragraph so that they can see that you are exactly what they are looking for. So imagine it as like a little mental checklist for the employer when they're looking at you, looking at your CV. Covering letter, sorry. Then the bullet points. So highlight the points from the advert or the job description and really make sure that it's your best ones. So they were looking for someone who had 3 years experience in finances. So put that in, or any achievements that maybe you've had, because they were looking for people who could see discrepancies. Your closing statement, obviously use this paragraph to tell them why you're interested for working for the company and the role itself. So here are some examples of just some cover letters that I've just sort of picked off the internet. both sort of two different styles. I suppose when we look at the look and feel of the cover letter, just make sure it represents you, but also that it flows. So whether it is using, often we use bullet points because it's just clearer and easier for people to see. You'll see on the left-hand side, you've got Laura. She's used some bolding of key information, and that's really just to sort of grab your attention. On the other side, she's again used bullet points, or in this example, she's used bullet points, but not highlighted them. But again, it's a lovely formatted, structured letter, and it's got enough information for that person looking at the cover letter to actually see whether or not you've got the right skills and experience for the role. So then we go on to the CV. So similar in the sense that the CV needs to be clear, it needs to be concise, the formatting needs to be nice and simple. I mean, you can use colour. There's been a big debate over whether you use colour and pictures and all the rest of it. Personally, I mean, it makes no difference to me whether there's a picture on it or not, or there's colour, but make sure that whatever you're going to put on there, that it stands out, but it doesn't actually overtake from the CV itself that you're trying to present. And also make sure that the CV is relevant to the role that you're actually applying for. If you're a corporate lawyer, maybe you're not going to use a rainbow of colours, but if you're going for a graphic design role, then actually, you know what, the colour and the imagery is really important, and maybe you shouldn't actually give them a CV, a paper form CV. Maybe you should actually put it on a portfolio and link it and give them a link. So really think about your industry and think about what it is that you're looking for and what role you're looking for, and really tailor your details and your CV to that. So keep it nice, clean, lots of white spaces. And I cannot stress enough that you need to tailor your CV to the job. Every single application that you make, please make sure that you change it and edit it so that it is relevant to the role that you're actually applying for. You will be surprised the amount of CVs that we see and that it actually hasn't been changed at all. And they've written a cover letter, for example, for an engineering role, and they've talked about how great their company is, and then they've put specifics in, but then haven't changed it for another application that they've put in. And maybe it's not for an engineering company, maybe it's for a corporate lawyer. So please make sure that you actually enter and change and edit those details. And depending on the role that you're applying for, highlight those relevant points that were on the job advert, or the job description if you've been able to get it. Again, with the formatting, make it nice and clear, and we'll go through some of different styles of CVs in a minute. But all of them take these sort of three sections. So there's always a tailored personal statement, often 100 to 200 words long. Again, it's clear, it's concise, it's informative. It's a statement of who you are, but it also incorporates the words that they've used in the advert and the job description and those key selling things that they wanted. Bullet points of relevant experience. We often don't use big, huge paragraphs anymore. Bullet points tend to be the more favoured option. And that's really an area where you can go into your key skills, work history, but organise them in the order of preference that you think that the employer looking at it will want to see it in. And that's a really good indication from the job description and from the job advert. You'll be able to see what their priorities are and just put your job duties, as it were, in that priority. It just makes it a bit easier for them to see. And as we've said before, make sure that those bullet points are actually the ones that are relevant to that job. So from the job advert or from the job description. And use action words and links. So try and use action verbs. And those things, what I mean by that are things like I've actioned and motivated, executed. I was awarded, whatever it is. These help you provide evidence of your experience, because everyone and their dog will use I am passionate about, or I am able to, or I am self-motivated, I can do. yeah, it's all lovely, but actually we want to see evidence that you've actually done this in your experience. And add links. There is more of an with the social media presence these days and with internet the way it is, there is so much, I suppose, ways to interconnect and network with people. So add links to your LinkedIn page maybe, or a blog, or something that you think will make you stand out from the usual job application that comes through and the job person. Also, it helps that new employer or that potential employer see who you are as a person, and sort of makes you, instead of a 2D piece of paper, into a 3D person. So some CVs. So I've only picked two because we could be here all day talking about CVs, just like with cover letters. But there's two sorts of formats. These days, there's a real thing to keep things as simple as possible, as brief but yet informative, and action orientated. So if you look at the CV on the left hand side, John Doe, he's a business development manager. He's got a personal statement at the top, and then he's got his work experience all bullet pointed, just like we've discussed, and he's really just used the last essentially 7 years or 5 to 7 years. So he's not used a great deal, like he hasn't gone back to his first job when he was first out of school. He's got his education on there. He's got any special skills. He's got organizational memberships or affiliations, any awards, that sort of thing. That CV really shows you that he is a go-getter. He has got awards. He is fully engaged in his work and his career and what he's doing. He's giving you lots of details there. I'm not sure if you can see them on the slides, but lots of details there about how he's managed budgets and the amount. So that's a really good thing. The length of time that he's done things, how he's increased sales and revenues, etc. So that's a really nice sort of formatting of a CV, and it is a one-pager, so it's nice, quick, brief, and to the point. On some roles, though, you actually need a little bit more information and a bit more in depth. On the other side of the screen, on the right-hand side, you've got Helen. She's got her profile at the beginning, so that's your personal statement. She's got her major achievements, and then she's put her education in there. And you'll see that it's a little bit different in the style in which it's written. There's more words, and it flows, and it's sort of really trying to highlight the key areas of what she is doing. In this instance, she is actually, it's only been a couple of jobs that she's done, so she's really highlighted her education and some of her major achievements that she's done to date. So again, there's no right or wrong way. It is just what works best for you and your industry, as well as you as a person. Check, double check, and triple check your CV and covering letter. Make sure that you've got your spelling, grammar, formatting, same tone, the right tense. Make sure that your CV flows. Communication. So please try, if you can, to get some information before the application, as in before you apply, and see if you can get the job description, as that will really help you when you're looking to write your cover letter, and to really tailor that job description. So when you're applying for the role, make sure that you follow the proper process. I think we've discussed that quite a lot. And also follow up. Majority of the time you'll receive a, how can I put it? You'll receive an acknowledgement saying, thank you very much for your CV, but you tend not to hear anything after that. Don't be afraid to actually follow up and find out what they're doing and how they're going, basically, with your application. Then social media. Just want to talk a little bit about social media and different platforms, just to give you a bit of an idea. Job seekers, most job seekers will have a LinkedIn profile, they'll have Facebook, some will have Twitter, some will have Instagram. There's only really 9% of a recent survey that actually don't have any social media presence. Employers tend to have a LinkedIn page, they tend to have Facebook and Twitter. and 22% don't have any social media presence at all. Interesting stats, and very important for you to know, that 62% of employers admitted that they use social media sites to check on prospective employers. So I say that erring with caution. 98% of that 62 checked out their LinkedIn. 68% of the 62 checked out their Facebook page. So obviously what I'm going to say now is, cannot stress enough, your digital profile has to mirror your CV. Make sure that your LinkedIn is up to date. Make sure that if you're writing, that you write some articles, post regularly, engage with those other posts in your industry and really expand that network. And please go through your Facebook. And if your grandmother would not be okay with it, then trust me, you should really look at changing it, because that image of yours is out there forever. Now, lastly, just want to talk briefly about networks, as I can see that we're coming close to time. So recruitment agencies are definitely worth registering with. Many companies are so bombarded with applications these days that they actually don't have time to go through them. So they post it with an agency. So get to know your local recruitment agency, get to know which ones are good for your industry, and see how they can help. And trust me, word of mouth is still a really good use of network there. You'll be surprised how many roles are filled with someone who knows someone who knows someone. So if you don't ask, you don't get. And really, any questions at all?
Thank you, Anna. That was really, really interesting. It was fabulous seeing those different types of CVs. That one on the left with the red and the formatting was just impressive, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really cool and lovely. It's great. It's compact. It's everyone can see what he can or can't do, basically, and it doesn't go on forever, which most people these days don't have time to go through. So
yeah, absolutely. Your point about right at the beginning, 80 to 100 applicants per role, and then your point at the end about who has time to process all of these. Just the thought of reading 80 to 100 applicants would be enough to make you not want to open your inbox or log into Seek or whatever. So
definitely,
yeah, it's
cool.
What a daunting thought that would be. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions around different forms of CV. So you mentioned that if you're a graphic designer, for example, have a portfolio. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, so many industries, or especially with design and that side of things, will actually want to see a bit more about what you can do. So this goes on for, like, for example, web designers or developers, anyone with code or anything like that. You really want to sort of showcase what it is that you can do. And often you've got that application that you put on via email or whatever it is that they've asked you to do. But really what they're looking for is a link to a web page or a landing page where they can see what you can do for them. Often it doesn't really work for, let's say, office type roles, so admin or reception or accounts or any of that sort of thing. But really for those other things, it works great for. So graphic design, web development, coding, that side of stuff. App development, etc.
Are you seeing people putting in applications through video?
Yeah, so we've had a couple go through video, which has been quite interesting. And you can see that they're incredibly nervous. So I would say, from someone who isn't used to doing this sort of stuff, unless you are amazing and you are incredible, I would probably suggest don't do it, because it probably makes it worse for you than better.
That's a good word of caution, really, actually. And what about references? So people often ask about references, and you have to think sometimes they're worth getting, sometimes they're not worth the piece of paper they're written on. What's the current state of getting references? What's the best practice?
So when you're putting references on your CV, I personally wouldn't put them on at all. I would just put reference on request. The reason why you would do that is because you really want to contact the people that you're speaking to and make sure that they really understand the role that you're going for and what the employer is looking for to actually make a better reference for you. But as an employer, it's actually often not what the person giving the reference says or doesn't say, actually, that is the more interesting part of it. So it's really listening and actively listening to what that referee is saying to actually know whether or not, the person you're looking at is what they say they are, really.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
And I have one other question for you. And the point around what you see coming up in the next 6 months. What sort of roles are out there that you think are going to be popular? And what sort of demand is out there at the moment in your area?
So there's lots of. Surprisingly, I have to admit, there's lots of recruitment around, which I didn't actually think there would be post-COVID. I thought it would be a little bit more doom and gloom. But there, I don't know if you get the same sense, Helen, but there's been an incredible push on work with your local businesses, support your local, make sure that if you're going to, I don't know, you're going to renovate your kitchen, instead of going to the great big like Mitre 10s and Bunnings, that you go to your local joinery down the road and support them so that they can keep people in work. So with that, there has come recruitment and movement with that, because they've actually had to expand teams and actually get more people on. So there has been a real trend for actual recruitment and filling in roles, more flexible and part-time roles. So like the filling in the gaps, that's definitely something that we've seen an increase of, and probably more skilled roles. So there was an article not so long ago about how actually the older, shall we say, generation or workers actually took the opportunity to go, you know what, I don't really need to work full time or do this. I can actually, bow out and maybe only work a couple of hours. And those skilled, especially within trade, those skilled tradies have sort of left and are just pottering around and doing a bit of this and a bit of that type thing. And that's really left a bit of a shortage in that sort of skilled labour as well. So there's a real cross, from the very young going in, there's more opportunity for them. And obviously there's lots of MSD and other government organisations are really pushing for financial assistance for employers to get them into the market. And then you can see from one end them getting in, and then from the other end, the older ones leaving and actually, starting to retire basically and just do odds and sods around the place. So
yeah. We're certainly seeing through this week, we've, in all our events and that, although the economy looks, rather frightening, actually on the ground here, many of our businesses we're working with are employing, and they've got plenty of vacancies and they're keen to get staff on. So, it's just, I think everything's a little bit confusing. I think what's really out there is there's just not a lot of certainty about things. So, that I assume reflects in the employment models people are using with fixed term and more flexible working relationships.
Yeah, there's very few permanent positions that are coming up. It's more fixed term or admittedly longer term fixed term, so like a 12-month period rather than maybe 3 or 5 or 3 or 6, but it's still fixed term, not on a permanent basis.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Oh, that's really interesting. So thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us today, Anna, and thank you for getting so involved in the Wellington Business Expo for 2020. We really appreciate that.
My pleasure at all. And thanks very much. And hopefully it wasn't too boring.
It's not boring at all. And I'm sure plenty of people will come back to the video and use some of the reference, use it as reference. I know that I will. I'm sure that our listeners can take away some really valuable things from what you've said. And if someone wants to get in touch with you, do you want to give them your contact details?
Yeah, so all you need to do is either give me a call on 022 602 7877 or just drop me an email at hello@networkhr.co.nz.
Great, and we'll pop that in the comment stream as well. So thank you everyone for tuning in this morning. Our next Expo live stream will be on Tuesday the 20th of October at 10 to 10:30. And you haven't registered for our business bash for next week, which is Thursday evening, you can go on to wellingtonbusinessexpo.nz and register for that. That's a free event for chamber members. And if you're not a chamber member, then please come along as well. In fact, you can even join up between now and then and come along for free. And so certainly an opportunity to get the whole business community together at the Lower Hutt Event Centre. The big business bash is sponsored by Riverlink and the Lower Hutt Event Centre. So, a great way for us actually to say thanks for all the support for the Expo, to wind up our Expo, and to take a lighthearted approach to what has been a very crazy and challenging year, and to just start putting it behind us and moving on, really. Also, can I encourage any visitors to take a look at our wellingtonbusinessexpo.nz site at all the exhibition stands we've got online. Currently, there's over 70. They went live earlier this week, and they'll stay up for at least the next 10 months. But there's some fabulous special offers and prizes to be won online, which will be finishing at the end of next week. So please check out the exhibition stands on wellingtonbusinessexpo.nz. Thanks again, Anna. Thank you for sharing your expertise.
Thank you very much. Lovely to have had a little chat today. Hope you have a great Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great rest of the day.
Cool. Thanks. Bye.